What's up guys, it's Jpeasy, and in the upcoming season of Shadow Legacy, Ubisoft is making some drastic changes to scopes and how your sensitivity will function. So in this video, I'm going to break down exactly what those changes are and how you can either get your sense as close to it was as possible, or simply dial into something more comfortable. When the test servers for Shadow Legacy went live, many were surprised to find the sensitivity that they've used for 5 years in Siege has changed. Many were upset, many, including myself, were confused on why it was changed, but more specifically, how it was changed. After a couple days, devs released a blog describing the changes and released an official calculator, but I'll be going into more detail about that a little later. What was added was a new mouse ADS sensitivity window. Inside, there was a toggle for either standard or advanced. If the advanced was turned on, there were separate sliders for each of the scope zoom levels, including the new scopes that were added for the season. In the blog, they described how the single sensitivity slider of the older system did not allow people to have the sensitivity they always wanted. They also described how their previous slider did not take field of view into account with its calculations. This new system was to fix both of those issues as well as consistency. Before I go into more detail, let's go over some terminology so everything I'm discussing is as clear as humanly possible. ADS stands for aim down sight, which is when you aim or scope up your weapon. This by default is right click on PC, L2 on PS4, or left trigger on Xbox. When you ADS, the sensitivity settings assigned to the new ADS sensitivity sliders will kick in, and then you'll transition from your hipfire sense, meaning when unscoped, to your ADS sense. FOV stands for field of view, which is the distance that you can see. A larger FOV will allow you to see more of the surrounding area of your character. Aspect ratio refers to the width of the screen in relation to its height. For example, a 4:3 image would be 4 units by 3 units high, whereas our standard aspect ratio on 99% of monitors is 16 units by 9 units. This has nothing to do with the actual size of your image, however, resolution is the term to describe that. For example, 19:20 or 1080p resolution. You can take a 19:20 by 1080 resolution image and change its proportions to 4:3. It will take the amount of pixels, reduce it in number to fit the 4:3, then take what's left over to fit the pixels required to be on the display. So the whole image would appear to be more stretched. Your mouse 360 refers to the distance your mouse has to travel to make your operator turn a full 360 in game. This is used as a calculation point for many of the sensitivity calculators. With the terms out of the way, let's go over your options when choosing your sensitivity scaling. In the dev blog, they mentioned how all the calculations work. So if you want to do the math manually, like some type of smart person, then I'll link direct to the blog in the description down below. But for the rest of us, a calculator is available to do the math. Their calculator provided was in the form of a Google document, which you need to download and then modify yourself. However, a calculator that I've been using for quite some time has been updated with the most recent formulas and has an additional level of context that can be helpful if you ever want to swap to another game and then replicate what your siege sensitivity is in that game. This calculator was done by Saido. I'm not sure if I'm butchering his name, sorry if I am, but a link to it will be in the description down below. But in order to replicate your sensitivity from Steelwave or prior, you need to input your old hipfire sense, your old ADS, your FOV, and finally your aspect ratio. This will then display on the fourth section on the right your new inputs for these separate sensitivity sliders. In this calculator, you can do all the calculations required to get your sensitivities exactly how you want them. Here you can modify values to see exactly how it will affect the 360 distance of each scope. If you happen to be one of those crazy people who like all their scopes to have the exact same 360 distance, which if it's not clear, I do not recommend, then you can use this to get as close as humanly possible. Modify each scope sense value and try to match the 360 distances. Side note, if you want to go this route or you end up with any of your sensitivity numbers over the cap of 200, you can change the modifier on it in the INI file. You will have to change the ADS mouse multiplier unit to be 0.04. This will make each sensitivity slider value to be double what the number on the slider will indicate. You can access that file by opening up your Windows Explorer, going into your documents, going into your My Games folder, then over to Rainbow Six Siege, then clicking on the random string of letters and numbers, which is your account, and then opening up the gamesettings.ini file. Your last option I want to go over is what is now the default value for your sensitivity. This is the standard option in the mouse ADS sensitivity menu. This basically sets all the values to be equal to a single number, 50 by default. What this does is cause the system to scale based on the Visomotor gain system. This basically is a linear scale system that replicates a person's perception when changing different zoom levels. When I attempted to try this, I found that every single scope over 1x seemed to be drastically slower than the previous Siege scaling system, and it was quite hard for me to adjust. However, I'm also used to having my ADS set to 83. Plugging the values into the calculator, I could instantly see why. Now, I'm not saying this system is necessarily a bad thing, it'd just be very difficult for people who played Siege for a long period of time to transition. I do, however, feel this type of system will assist newer players adjust to different sensitivities and find an easier way to transition between the different scopes. The biggest hurdle stopping the system from being implemented by the player base, however, is the large number of players who do not test how systems feel for themselves, but instead simply plug in a value of their favorite pro or streamer without understanding the context or their history with the game. So like anything I talk about, in the end, it will be about preference and experimentation to find the sensitivity that works best for you. For some, the new standard model will feel just right. For others, importing our old sensitivities and converting to the new system will be the play. Try to see what works for you, and with these new sliders, we have the tools to customize each scope exactly how we want to. I hope this helps, and as always, my name's Jpeasy. Take it easy.